Hey yo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video. This is going to be my first indie book that I'm going to be reviewing, and expect more. I actually read a lot of indie comics. Some of my favorite comics are indie comics. If you are new to comics, what are indie? If you know the word indie, it's just independent. Typically they're from Image Comics, they're from Dark Horse. I think IDW counts, I'm not entirely sure. I know they do kind of deal with already established IPs, but I do think they kind of count as indie. You also have Boom Studios, which also deals with IPs. They have like, Power Ranger comics. Some of my favorite comics ever. No joke either. Like no fucking joke. Beyond the Grid, Shattered Grid, Necessary Evil. Some of my favorite comic arcs ever. Maybe I'll do a video about it one day, but I read a lot of independent comics, and that's where really my passion for comics kind of came from. I found my way to Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips comics. Criminal, Reckless, Fatale, Scene of the Crime. They are my favorite comic duo, period. They're my favorite comic duo, period. I love noir comics. And that's kind of where this leads me here. As you see by the title, this is a review of The One Hand and the Six Fingers by Ram V, Dan Waters, Lawrence Campbell, Sumit Kumar, Lee Lufridge, Aditya Bilikar. Hope I said those names correctly. The One Hand and the Six Fingers is a noir crime comic, essentially about a detective who has found out that a serial killer that he has already caught twice has reemerged again. Before I even get into the story, if you have not read this comic, go read it. It is noir crime at its finest. It is also like it's very high science fiction. It's like Blade Runner 2049 meets The Matrix. It's like Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips crime noir comics meet high science fiction. Like, it is genuinely a clash of these two genres done phenomenally, and it's amazing because Ram V and Dan Waters have worked together before. Ram V's Detective Comics run, they had Dan Waters on backups, and it created this interwoven story where these two creators were essentially filling out the backdrop of this run together, and they were creating this run, this era of Batman together. For them to go out and make an indie comic together, it's probably like, dream made in heaven. The One Hand and Six Fingers were originally two miniseries that alternated between each other. They went, sequentially. So One Hand number 1 went into the Six Fingers number 1, then One Hand number 2, the Six Fingers number 2. It was a very interesting way to produce a comic and to also distribute a story. I think that it's done extremely well. One thing that I was very worried about was the clash of art styles. I think that it is done expertly because Lawrence Campbell's art is very much hard-boiled detective like art style. It's dark, it's gritty. You really get the sense that the main character, who is Ari Nassar, who is a detective, he is a traditional detective in this future like city named Neo-noir. It's your typical futurescape of a city. This is essentially like a deadly cat and mouse game, and like most crime noir comics, you do get the detective who is searching for the answer, obviously. And by the end, obviously he does get the answer of what is going on with this crime. This series flips that entirely on its head because we get a series that is following the serial killer with the Six Fingers. And we see how this character becomes the Six Fingers, how he becomes the serial killer that Ari is looking for. And it's fascinating that Ram V and Dan Waters were able to take the archetypes of noir comics and flip them. Ari Nassar is looking for the truth, but he doesn't find the truth that he was looking for. He finds the truth of essentially why there is a second or third serial killer, but it's not necessarily who the serial killer is. And the Six Fingers is actually the person who finds out why he is killing people and finds out what is wrong and why this crime is always being committed. It's a story centered around existential dread, and I feel like that it is neo-noir by definition. It further explains the reason behind humans' existential dread, their existential crisis of the fact that they don't know who they are, they don't know what they need to do, they don't know what they want to do. And you find out that all of these people, all of these humans, and that is very important. All these humans end up killing themselves because they don't know what the hell to do with their lives anymore. There are robots in this world who essentially assist humans that push them to kind of create this matrix style, system. All these humans are in airplanes hooked up, and they're constantly reliving their lives every single day instead of actually living. Ari Nassar is a traditional detective in this situation, and in this simulation, essentially, like, he learns of a truth, but not the truth. And you have the Six Fingers, who is named Johannes, who actually is not a human. He's a synthetic robot, and in this world there are synthetic robots all over, and he ends up actually finding out that it's a glitch in his system that is causing these murders, these serial killers, and every single person. And it causes Ari Nassar to constantly go through this cycle of catching a killer, and then another one pops up, catching him again, and another one pops up. It's happened multiple times, and I love the way this story is crafted, because in the final issue of The One Hand, the very final pages, it's not even drawn, it's like text. It's like text, being written out, and we finally see the truth behind why there are multiple serial killers going by the same name, and it's because there is the same glitch going on every single time. I love this comic book. This is going to be a very short review, because the more I talk about it, the more it's just I guess, spoiling you. You need to just go out and read it. It's an independent comic that everybody should read. It's wonderfully crafted. Dan Waters and Ram V work exceptionally together. They're you would almost think that the same person was writing both books, but it's two people. And I love that they both both books look very different, but it's not in a sense that makes them feel alien to each other. They work within each other. They work together to produce this very, very interesting story that is very much inspired by The Matrix. And if you've watched The Matrix, you understand. Who hasn't? But it's wonderful. I absolutely adore this series. You need to read it. I think that I'll have a link below if you want to read it. Amazing. There is a collection coming out. I think it's already coming out, where both of them completed together. It's called The One Hand and The Six Fingers, as one collection. Something that you have to have. A book that you have to read in this day and age. Independent comic books are in an amazing place right now, where there's so many interesting stories being told. Between Ice Cream Man, between Power Fantasy, outside of Big Two, it is a well of creative ideas everywhere. And to me, that's where some of the best stories come from creators being able to do what they really want to do without any executive oversight, without any without anybody worried about how is this going to look upon the characters, characters that have existed for 80 years. There's no need for that. It's just a story. Wonderful work. Up there with some of my favorite independent comics ever. So up there with some of my favorite comics ever, period. One of the best comics that have come out last year. I was gonna make a top 10 comics of 2024. I ended up going against it. Not that I didn't care to do it, but there's always next year. I'll do one for the end of this year. But one of the best comics that have come out last year. If you missed it, go ahead and read it. I absolutely adored this one. Appreciate y'all for watching. Comment what you guys have thought about this series if you have read it. If it's as exceptional as I am gassing it to be, I genuinely do think it is. But if you think otherwise, let me know why. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.